The Senior Rehab podcast is sponsored by Great Seminars and Books. If you need high-quality geriatric con ed that's worth your time and money, check out Great. Owned by the living legend Carole Lewis, Great offers courses and products created by recognized leaders in geriatrics. Learn the most effective techniques for diagnosing and treating your patients. Just go to seniorrehabproject.com/great and get $25 off by using the code SRP25. The show is also sponsored by you, the listener. Go to seniorrehabproject.com/join to find out how you can help steer the direction of this movement and join our monthly meetup. Once again, that is seniorrehabproject.com/join. Hit me.
Welcome to the Senior Rehab Podcast.
The podcast for rehab clinicians that want to better serve older adults.
And now, your host, Dustin Jones.
Hello, friends. Before we jump into the interview with the one and only Carole Lewis, I'm going to ask a favor. Would you please go to seniorrehabproject.com/survey? It is a 3 to 5 minute survey, about 10 questions, where I am going to gather your input, your perspective, your critique, and your feedback to help formulate the future and direction of the Senior Rehab Project. I'm at a point in life where I want to devote more time, more resources, more energy into this movement that we have on our hands. But I want your direction. I want your perspective. I really value that. And I feel if we collaborate as a whole, as a group, as a community, then we can really create something amazing that's going to have a lasting impact on ourselves, on our profession, on our patients, and hopefully, society at large. So go to seniorrehabproject.com/survey, take the 3 to 5 minutes. You'll be entered into a chance to win a pretty awesome Redefine Old mug that I am a fan of and drink buttered coffee out of every morning. So go to the link, seniorrehabproject.com/survey. You have until May 15th, and the link will be in the show notes as well. But without further ado, Carole Lewis. Hello, friends. Welcome to the Senior Rehab Podcast. Thank you for your time today. I am excited to bring back on the show Carole Lewis. She is a repeat offender, but she's a physical therapist, educator, entrepreneur, visionary in our field. She gave the 2016 Macmillan Lecture, which is the highest honor from the APTA, and she has more letters behind her name than I have years on this planet. Carole, welcome to the show.
Oh, what an introduction. I love it. Thank you.
Impressive. So I'm going to tell a quick story just to show how much better of a person you are than I am. Can I do that?
Okay, I'd be interested in finding that.
All right. So listeners, if I don't think I've ever talked about this. So when I schedule these interviews, I have 2 specific segments during the week that I've blocked off to talk to people. That's Tuesday evenings and then Thursday mornings. And I like to do them super early. And Carole looked at the times and said, can we do 9 a.m.? I said, okay. And she said she had to work out, which, of course, she's going to, work out early in the morning before the sun rises and be ready for a 9 o'clock interview. And me, just being inspired by Carole, normally I don't work out in the morning, but I thought, Carole's working out right now. I should probably do something. So what did I do? I ran to the local donut shop, North Lime Coffee and Donuts. I'm holding it up to the video right now. So you inspired me to run and go get a donut this morning. Thanks.
After my own heart. I can't tell you the number of donut places I've run to.
All right. So we talked back in the winter. You were up to a lot of different things. Give us an update on how things are going with the book and with the screen and all the things that you briefly mentioned in our last podcast.
All right. Well, let me quickly mention the book, and then I'd like to spend a little more time on the screen because that just launched. The book will be out in May. It's the only total ebook, which I think a lot of people have trouble understanding that. It's because I'll go to conferences and people will say, well, my book has and most books do have an e part to it where you can go online and get questions or whatever. But this book will have no paper. It will be all on whatever device you're going to use. And for example, you'll get to a chapter, you'll click on the author's name, and you'll get a video of the author telling you about themselves. And then you'll get to the actual chapter, and there'll be activities to do to get you familiar with the subject, which may include videos of older people, for example, in the chapter on functional assessment, doing different functional assessment type activities. And then, so you'll just click, for example, on a, and everybody knows a tug, but the tug, of course, is in there, and you'll see a therapist doing the tug, besides all the psychometrics behind the tug. And then, for example, in the bed mobility chapter, in the mobility chapter, you will see, for example, different techniques based on, for example, Alexander's work on how to get people more mobile in bed. And I know that one because I did that chapter, but you'll see me working with a lady doing the different techniques. So it'll say, work on rolling to the side, based on his evidence-based treatment. And you'll see me working with someone having them roll in bed. So you actually see the techniques when you read about them. The other thing I love is with that will be a URL that you can hit, and you can see the strength of evidence of that technique. So, when you want, which kills me because a lot of textbooks don't have that, and we just accept it. And I came to this when I realized I was writing my prospectus, and I was gonna do a chapter on posture, and I went to say, okay, here's posture changes with age, and I started to write them down, and I realized, how do I know that? So I went to the evidence, and really there weren't any studies on that were significant. And then I really started to go through the literature, and I found a couple. But there's really not a lot out there to support what we do. But I try to make every author support what they say. Now, some of them are case studies. Some of them are meta-analyses, which are great, so that each person can choose, okay, I'm going to do this technique because the evidence is incredibly stronger, and I'm not going to do this. It's really just a case study. So that's the whole thing that makes me really excited about the book. So it's in the launch phase. It's due to be out in May. So I'm real excited about that.
So you're saying if I buy this book and, I read a chapter and I see something that I want to look further into or look at the evidence, I can just click a link and it's going to, take me to said article or abstract, as opposed to buying a book, looking at the reference number, flipping 300 pages to the list of references, and then having to go on the internet and search for that. So this is going to be kind of a one-click. Everything is meant to be easy to consume.
Yep. And the thing is, I think therapists now want that. Yeah. I hope they do. I hope they're not just accepting, oh yeah, let's do this technique because so-and-so said it's a good idea. That's therapy back in the 50s. I think we've really grown, and I think people are looking for that. I know I am. I go to a class or whatever, and I'm always wondering, where did they get that? And I'm the first person to raise my hand in the audience and ask that. So I hope a lot of therapists are looking for that. So that's what I'm hoping this book will do. So in May, it comes out, 33 chapters.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So will that be accessible on like a computer or laptop as well as a tablet? Like what?
On all of them. And actually,
on all of them. Okay.
I don't know the answer is, will it be accessible on a phone? But I know it will definitely be accessible on a tablet and computer.
Okay.
I need to ask. I'm going to do that right after this. Ask accessible on the phone. And what's fun is I really wanted to name it, It's Not Your Grandma's Textbook.
What did your publisher think about that?
My publisher didn't like it, but all my authors did. Yeah. But I thought that was really fun because your grandmother would have had a textbook that was a book, a paper, in your hand. And this one isn't. So I thought but they didn't like it. But what I love about it is it has all types of really interesting chapters, that range from like making up your mind to making a plan, facts and fiction. Those are the main categories. And then the final is just the other areas that impact functional independence in older persons, the whole picture, things that really count. So it's kind of fun the way it's put together, that it's, I hope, a little better than a dry textbook. So we'll see how it's accepted by clinicians and by students.
Yeah, and that's what we need, honestly, because this is just my perspective, but I've heard it echoed in other people as well. In our world, our geriatric world, the presentation of content and how and what medium it's portrayed on and how it's portrayed, the language used, the excitement that it's delivered with is lacking as compared to other settings per se. And I think something innovative like this, will definitely catch the eye of a lot of different people, and maybe some people that aren't necessarily interested in working with older adults, but they kind of have to because their job. That this could kind of generate some excitement for them. So I think it's awesome what you're doing and trying to break out of the traditional mold that we've created for ourselves.
Well, thank you. You're so positive. I love it about you.
Well,
It
no,
makes you just saying it to be nice, or you really mean it?
well, no, I am. Like I've done. So Heather Cronin, you sat beside her in my talk at CSM. She's a
Yes,
Fox
yes.
Rehab PT extraordinaire. We did a podcast together talking about bringing sexy back to geriatrics,
Oh, okay.
which is actually the title of Tim Fox's episode that he just did with Jimmy McKay, PT Pinecast.
Oh,
And just
okay.
that whole concept of how can we make geriatrics sexy? How can we get people to view, the 80 to 90-year-old patient that you see? How can we get them to view them with as much value as we do the collegiate athlete or, the young high school basketball player that's recovering from the ACL injury? Like how can we elevate these people to where, from our rehab perspective, like it generates excitement to work with them? And I think we need to do things a little differently than what we've been doing. I think your book is one of them in the format of it.
I'm gonna. This actually is a great lead into the other thing that I wanted to talk about, which is this screen that I came up with. And what I'm hoping to do is completely change how people think about healthcare. I think we're in a mess. You know that they can't figure out what to do with healthcare right now. So I just think there isn't enough money to pay for healthcare. So I think therapists have to start thinking differently, which is how do we keep people from using healthcare? And that's why I created this moving target screen. And so I don't think it's the whole answer to this and making it sexy, but I do think it will put therapists in a completely different position where they have great information that they could give to the public that will create a commodity that the public will want. So one of the things I'm doing is trying to work with AARP. I do have some people there that I know, and I'm trying to create a demand for this preventive screen. Now, I'm not saying please don't think this is the only screen, but I think it's a great start. I think it's got great information. I think it's all evidence-based. I will give you a link in a minute where they can download the screen for free. It launched yesterday. But what it is it's a way that therapists can go out and in 30 minutes look at different parameters of fitness. So the cardiologist said, cardiopulmonary fitness is the sixth vital sign, or should be, because it's more predictive than diabetes or any of the other major diagnoses, even cancer, in predicting morbidity and mortality. So fitness is really important, but I think we need to go a little bit further and expand to fitness to what we know it is, which is not just cardiopulmonary fitness, but it's strength, it's flexibility, it's balance, and it's even posture. So what I've done is create a tool that does that it takes on an initial history. Have you fallen? What's your meds? What's your exercise background? And then it goes into the different aspects of fitness. And I use very simple, fast to use measures. So for example, wall occiput distance, which is predictive of all kinds of things. Nemmer's work that shows it predicts falls if you have a forward head, using Simonowski's work that shows that if you have a forward head and a thoracic kyphosis, you're at more risk of a vertebral compression fracture. Oh my gosh, what if we could prevent those? Yeah. And my thought is people don't even know. So in the video that is also available, and I'll give you the link for that, it's on YouTube, it comes with a form. You can get the information on how to do these. I'm actually screening a 90-year-old woman, which is so cool. She's really active. Oh, I know. She's really active, really healthy. And actually, for the longer video that we are selling a piece that if people want to go in more depth. But in that, I did 3 people. And the 90-year-old woman was almost 15 years older than the other people in the video. And she was one of the ones that did better. I had a 76-year-old professor emeritus who was a great guy, but really had health issues. He had this horribly severe forward head that no one, I mean, he goes to the doctor regularly. No one ever said anything to him about it. He tells his doctor, I'm working out. He totally flunked the 2-minute step test. Totally. Worse than the 90-year-old woman. No, actually, worse than the 79-year-old woman. So people think they're working out, but they're not. I mean, they need us. They need therapists to lead the program and show them what to do. So so I do forward head, wall occiput distance, thoracic extension is measured by rib iliac crest. Then I go into flexibility, check the important things like ankle dorsiflexion, and McCagney's work that you need at least 8 degrees with the knee extended to be at a decreased risk for fall. Something as simple as not having enough ankle dorsiflexion. We also measure plantar flexion, which we know that if you can't push off, you're really not going to be safe to walk. So using plantar flexion norms to show people that they really need to make these healthy. And I know a lot of people, want to use Jan's norms, which gives older people only the ability to do 3 or 4. But Jan's community were people that didn't exercise. So how can we say that's normal? We have to start trying to shoot for a higher level for our older patients and not treating them like, oh, they're so cute, I'm not going to push them. Stop it. All right. These people want to get better. They want to be healthy. And I'm seeing so many people in their 90s that I know are going to live 10, 15 years, and they're going to live it healthy. Anyway, so then I go into balance, and I pick some static and dynamic balance measures, looking even at vestibular hypofunction, narrowing the base of support. For my endurance measure, I use the 2-minute step because it's 2 minutes versus 6. So it does do well in studies, showing that it is as good as the 2-minute. Under strength, I use grip because grip is such a big measure for morbidity and for mortality as well. Shoulder rotators, because as a clinician, I see just too many people that have rotator cuff issues. If you look at the studies, it says by the time you're 70, 90 on an MRI, 90% of people at ultrasound, have a tear of their rotator cuff. 90%. So if we can get that early and get people working on their rotator cuff problems in their late 50s, early 60s, they wouldn't need to have rotator cuff surgery. Sit to stand, of course. And then I looked at abdominals and back extensors as measures of the core, but real simple measures that older people could do. So I give you the choice of the plank or curl up, which I think are easier if someone doesn't want to do a plank or can't bear weight through their shoulders. So all kinds of alternatives. And then the last page of the form is to go through those and say to the person, hey, you're doing pretty well, keep it up, or you really need to work on this, or you need to see a physical therapist who's going to give you a complete program. I've consulted with companies who use this form as a way to get people into the office, which I think is a great idea. Legally, you have to be careful. You can't do screens and say, come to my office. You have to give them choices of where they can go. But I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think these are people that we can help before they need to have, a total hip replacement or someone who needs a rotator cuff surgery, or even worse, someone who breaks their hip later on because they didn't work on any of these things. So I think we can make a real effort, and we can make a real place for ourselves in the preventive model. But I'm a little nervous to go to AARP before therapists have something. If I go to them and say, here's this tool, my fear is they're going to say, well, how many therapists know how to do this? Yeah. And right now, I don't know. So I'm hoping they're going to be a little slow with their response to me. I've already reached out to them. And so it may take a while before they want to do anything with us till more therapists are trained. But I do think it's important that, again, if it's not this, it's a easy to do screen. I know there are screens out there. I had one of my fellow therapists do one on me, and he skipped a lot of it, and it took over an hour and a half. He's doing dermatomes, sensory tests, proprioceptive tests of every finger and every toe, and I'm thinking, oh man, where's the predictives in this? Where does this point to anything that someone can? And the other thing about these, they're all areas. And when I give in my longer course, I give exercises that I suggest. But if you have ones that are evidence-based that you like, use them. But give somebody exercises that will change this. For example, Botman's protocol for thoracic hyperkyphosis is easy to do. It really makes a difference. Use something like that so that you change forward head and kyphosis, so that people will be feeling better and looking better. So, I mean, what I like is a lot of these parameters, or actually all of them, can be changed with appropriate exercise.
Yeah. And there's a couple things that I like about it. We got to talk about it at CSM on Saturday morning, I think.
Yep.
And it is, it's very evidence-based, and you've brought together all these, these screens, these tests to give us kind of a predictive idea of what could happen to this person or their functional ability. And then you've kind of packaged that up all together to give us an idea of this person as a whole, which I really like. And then the other thing that's really intriguing is the back of that form, where the prescription of what are we going to do to improve the score, to improve your function, to improve any deficits that we found. It's laid out in a very simple manner. It's not going off and printing 8 pages with 3 exercises on each page and just throwing that at the patient. But you have the back form. There is, I think, intentionally a constrained space for you to implement certain activities, which I think is going to be a very easy to consume manner. So it definitely seems very thoughtful in design. So let's say I was getting this screen, you were running me through it. How long do you think that would typically take?
Well, with this 90-year-old woman, I did it in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it should take 30 minutes. And the counseling part depends. If you have to teach them a lot of exercises, it might take a little longer. If it's somebody that basically, and if somebody who's too much, you pretty much say to them, you need to go to a therapist if there's too many things. So the second woman that I showed on the video was in great shape. She had one area that she couldn't pass out of 15. She was incredible. But she works out, all the time. She's 79 years old. She's been a gym. She's done everything. So for her, the counseling session was 3 minutes, and she went through the screen. We were easily done by 30 minutes. So yeah, it doesn't take that long. Again, it depends on the person you're screening. But I think a screen. Now, again, people have said to me, "Oh, it's a screen. It should take a couple minutes." Well, here's the problem. If we minimize what we do to one test, I think we're leaving out a lot. If I do a tug, I'm not picking up if the person has balance issues. If I do a one-legged stand, I'm not looking at how the person turns. Or if I don't do a tandem, I can't tell what happens when they narrow their base of support. So it gives, I think, a more global picture. Now, with that said, this is fluid. I am more than willing to change what I have, but I'm also challenging the people out there to come up with something that they like, that they may want to use on their own too. I just want therapists to be out there doing this, because I already see, and I even saw on one of your podcasts, that there's a functional aging institute. I'm not sure what they're having those people do, but I just want to make sure that it's evidence-based. If anybody's out there doing this, make sure what you do really means something versus a test that's made up. Some of those high-level tests that I see a lot of therapists doing, do they really predict something? And maybe they do for the athlete, but I'm not sure they do. Like the STAR test. I've had a lot of people say to me, "Why don't you do the STAR test?" Well, I'm not sure that predicts for younger people, let alone older people.
Right.
And so we have to stay focused on that. We want to give our patients something that will really give them good information.
Yeah, and you mentioned the different groups of people working on this. I'm involved with the APHPT. It's the Academy of Prevention and Health Promotion Therapies, started by Mike Eisenhart.
Okay.
So what he is doing, he's created this in this group of people to think about how we as physical therapists can work with other professions, and to have an impact before people enter the medical system. He coins it as that we're facing health, that we want to be health facing instead of disease facing like we currently are. And so what he's done is gather groups of people to address how to age well in these different stages of life. And so there's this healthy aging team that is thinking how can we provide a screen that is predictive, that has been validated, that can be, easy to use by clinicians out in the field, and be able to provide some value for people. And I feel like what you have done with this is very the mission is the same as that group of people. So I do hope, down the road that there is some collaboration amongst them or whoever else in our field. But I do feel like this conversation is happening a lot more, where people are saying, how can we impact these people before they get into the system, before we see them in this state that they're in, which is typically not a good one, especially in my world of home health. So it's really, really neat to see. I'm wondering though, what are you collecting data on this in terms of like the pre and post values and what that actually means in terms of their function, in terms of like validating the screen as a whole?
Yeah, I'm seeing them every year. Every year I do an assessment to collect data. Now, if I see somebody as a client, and that's the one nice thing, if you present this, and I'm actually coming up with a slideshow for community and for physicians, because what I do is I'll go to geriatrician offices, and at lunchtime, you can buy them lunch as long as you teach them something. I am coming up with a lunchtime lecture. And what I'm finding is it's really weird. A lot of docs don't like you to do the test on them, but they'll let you do it on somebody in their office staff and show them. Anyway, and so I'll either do it very low key, where I actually just bring the form and show them on them or somebody in their staff, or I'm coming up with, I already have a slide presentation, but it's not ready to go out to the public, that I'm going to have out there for free. And I have one for community. Now, the community one is almost perfect. I presented it a couple times, but you go out there and you'll get 10 people right afterwards from a community center that'll say, "Ooh, I want to come see you." So what a great way to get business. And you can charge for the screen. I mean, I'm not telling you you have to give me any money for this. You can charge for the screen, and if you give a talk and get 10 people from that, you get them for your screen, and they could, if they're appropriate, they can then end up being your patient. So it's up to you, but I think it's a great way to get the word out there. And I think that would make geriatric physical therapy sexy. You're out there working with these people, making a great salary, giving a super service to them. I can't imagine that's any better than working in a clinic, with an athlete. I think that's pretty fun and very cool to do.
Preach it. Yeah, and I see this having applications in multiple settings too. I mean, whether someone is affiliated with a senior center or outpatient or a rehab facility. I mean, just any setting, even the emergency department. I mean, my gosh, if there was a PT on staff and an ED, I mean, they could run them through the screen and get a really good idea of how this person is going to handle themselves, outside of that emergency department. So it's cool to see. I'm excited to see how this will be utilized and how it will morph and change and just become like an optimal tool for people like me. So I want to transition a little bit. Hold on. I need to finish my donut. It's been getting stale because I've been talking so much. Those are good donut, Carole.
Oh, you're killing me. That's good. Do you want me to give you the link for the oh gosh, this is really going to be. Here's an easy one. Here's actually the easiest one. It's www.greatseminarsonline/functional with a hyphen standard hyphen for hyphen optimal hyphen aging hyphen a hyphen moving hyphen target hyphen screen hyphen forms /
All right.
greatseminarsonline.com. But I think if you just go there, there should be something on the front page that'll take you to the free 45-minute video and the form. So
and I will put
the longer one's a little tough, but you put hyphens between all the words functional standards for optimal aging, a moving target screen forms. But if you want to, just go to the Great Seminars. It's up there. You'll be able to see it.
And all of that will be in the show notes, folks. So don't worry about having to remember that. Just go to the show notes section of your podcast catcher app, and it'll be right there. So I want to transition into some quick questions, but your answers do not have to be quick. Okay. Let's see. What were you doing when you were, let's say, 25 years old? Give us a context of your life then.
I was in Southern California. I think I was at my first job still. No, maybe not. No. By 25, I had already worked 2 years at a county hospital, which was fabulous, LACUSC. And actually, at that point, I was just about to graduate with my master's degrees from USC.
Okay.
So I was working part-time. Actually, I had 5 jobs. I did. I was a teaching assistant. I worked weekends at acute rehab unit. I worked at a skilled nursing facility. I did home care. And what was the other one? Oh, I worked on Sundays. I worked at skilled nursing. On Saturdays, I worked at a sports medicine clinic.
You're so lazy, Carole. So lazy.
I was getting 2 master's degrees. It's sickness, Dustin. It's a sickness.
Oh gosh. All right. So I mean, you've had, an epic career, and I mean, it almost sounds like you're just getting started, honestly, with all the things that you're continuing to do. What would you tell your 25-year-old self? What advice would you give?
Maybe you should work on your social life instead of your business career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it hard for you to shut off the PT business mind?
It is.
Yeah.
It is. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I do. It's actually an addiction. So I don't know. Yeah, maybe some point I got to figure out how to get my social life together, because I do love what I do. I mean, it energizes me. I'm excited about it. So yeah, it is hard.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, especially
just
when
a psychotherapy session.
Yeah, I'm going into a deep depression as I scarf my donut down, and we're talking about social life. Yeah, it's getting pretty serious here, Carole.
It is.
No, I feel that too, though, and I think a lot of listeners would echo that. Just the driven professional, especially, I think in this day and age where there is a lot of opportunity, and there's always a chance to be doing something, to be consuming something, to listen to something, read something. Like it's the barriers between work and outside of work are seem to be a very small line. And so I think a lot of people probably feel that same struggle too. And I know I do as well, especially with this podcast and working as a home health PT. But yeah, it is a struggle, but the fact that it energizes you, I think is a good thing.
Well, you know what though? You're amazing. And I think you really commit. And I think I do too. I guess there's 2 edges. Okay. For a person who feels like they're doing too much, they need to recognize it. Yeah. But on the other hand, there's people that don't do too much that are also in our profession. And for those people, I'd like to say, if you think your social life's good, then maybe you need to think, well, maybe I need to do a little more for my profession. I don't know.
I like that.
Like me, but maybe do a little bit more. Say they'll listen to one more podcast or read one more article or something.
Yeah.
Just to up the profession a bit.
I like that. What has been some of the most helpful continuing education that you have taken? You've given tons. You have your own company that educates people, but in terms of what you've consumed, what's been some of the most helpful stuff?
Till this day, still, when I was going to get my GCS for the first time, I thought, well, what am I going to go to? And there was a review course at UCLA and one at Harvard that they give in geriatric medicine. And it's a 4-day from 6 a.m. till 10 p.m. And oh yeah. And I have to say, I went to the one at Harvard. It was incredible. I mean, I think they still have it, but they get cutting edge researchers. And the good thing is they're putting more. They had one PT on the docket that when I saw it, and she was Peggy Trueblood. She was incredible. But I think now they have a lot more PTs and OTs on those, but they're amazing. So at Harvard, it's the geriatric medicine review course.
That's interesting.
And thousands of physicians show up for that.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you were definitely a minority in the crowd.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be an interesting position to be in. All right, next question. So let's say you're out in DC. Let's say there's not a bunch of snow on the ground like there is now, and you're a home health physical therapist. You're about to go see patients. What are you going to have in your trunk?
Ooh, you know what I have? I have
What kind of car do you have? Let's start there. What are you driving?
I have a Lexus, but it's not a new Lexus.
Is it a car or the like SUV?
It's SUV.
Okay, so you got a decent sized trunk. What would you put in it?
Well, you should see what I have. I have Dynadiscs. I have TheraBand stability trainers. I have every color TheraBand you can imagine in rolls in the back of my car. The most crucial thing I have is I have this bag that says Amazon Rainforest last. Let me see. I'm reading it. Last great lungs of the planet. So it's this bag that's made up of all consumable material, and in it I have my pulse ox, I have my evaluation forms, I have my dynamometer, my grip, and my handheld dynamometer. I'm trying to think. I have rulers in there. I have. I'm trying to think what else I have. Tape measures. I have all kinds of things like that. So that comes in the house with me, and then depending on the person, I bring in the other pieces of equipment. I actually have respirators, both the mechanical and the regular, that I can put on the table, give them a bit of a warm up. Or for my Parkinson's patients, I use the electric one so that they have to work to beat the speed of it. Really good. It's based on a tandem biking study. It shows you have to overcome the speed of it, and it really helps the gait pattern. So I use that. I mean, I use it for other things, but that's one of my favorites. I'm trying to think what else. I have walking poles, Nordic walking sticks. I don't know what else I have in there, but it's a mess.
That's impressive. You've given me some ideas.
One thing I don't have is McDonald's wrappers. I've been in other therapist cars. I see a lot of McDonald's wrappers.
Oh yeah, it can be pretty crazy. I'm kind of envious of you. I drive a tiny little hatchback 2-door, and I'm at the point now where I don't have room for a lot of equipment that I want to have, so I may have to upgrade to the SUV.
I mean, 2007 Lexus had no.
Yeah.
I make it up. I don't know. I was getting one of those little cars, but you're right. Now I won't have room. What are those Fiats? Those tiny little things. I love them, but you're right. I'd be able to fit nothing in there.
Yeah. All right. So last question. Let's say you're at CSM, and you've kind of already done this. You gave the Macmillan lecture, but let's say we're at CSM. Every geriatric rehab clinician is in the room. You have their attention. What would you want them to know?
I would want them to know that they have an incredible opportunity to change the future of healthcare for older people. And that, and I got to say, it's the evidence. If they go to the evidence for their examinations and interventions, they could do anything. Just find their love. Do they like to teach? Do they like to create? Do they like patient care? And just hone in on that, but be sure to be careful to make sure what they're working on is based in research and that it's credible, and then share it with their peers.
I like it. You heard it, folks. Great seminarsonline.com. Carole Lewis, the Macmillan lecturer, the extraordinary clinician, educator, and just definitely pushing our field forward. So all the links that we mentioned will be in the show notes, so be sure to check them out. Check out the screen. Be on the lookout for the book, all the things that Carole is doing, and be a part of it. Use it, consume it, critique it, give her feedback, because I know she wants to make this the best product that we can make for our population, but then our profession as well. So Carole, thank you again for your time. It is greatly appreciated.
Oh, thank you. It was very fun. I love talking with you.
Hit me. Thank you for listening to the Senior Rehab Podcast. I appreciate your time. And if you enjoyed this episode, do me one favor. Share it with one other person that would benefit. Thank you. If you want to see the show notes or find more episodes, just go to seniorrehabproject.com. And until next time, my friends, do not forget to stay funky. The Senior Rehab podcast is sponsored by Great Seminars and Books. If you need high-quality geriatric con ed that's worth your time and money, check out Great. Owned by the living legend Carole Lewis, Great offers courses and products created by recognized leaders in geriatrics. Learn the most effective techniques for diagnosing and treating your patients. Just go to seniorrehabproject.com/great and get $25 off by using the code SRP25. This show is also sponsored by you, the listener. Go to seniorrehabproject.com/join to find out how you can help steer the direction of this movement and join our monthly meetup. Once again, that is seniorrehabproject.com/join.